Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Danielle Kilcullen. I am the founder of Exploring the Wonder Years. And today I'm here with Curtis, who is going
Okay.
to introduce himself in just a moment, but we are in for a treat. Curtis and I today are talking about small business ownership leadership. The focus of our conversation today will be mission, vision of Curtis's company, strengths, challenges, goals, all things what we've been doing during the pandemic
Right.
and beyond. So, Curtis, introduce yourself to us. Tell us your company name, where people can find you, and your target audience.
Awesome. Awesome. So first of all, Danielle, thank you for having me. It's been a ride. It's been a blessing. It's been a journey. So I really appreciate you and really honor the work that you're doing. So kudos to you. So yeah, my name is Curtis Cox. I am the founder and CEO of Curtis Careers LLC. It started in 2018, and my target audience is college students, young professionals, companies, nonprofits, organizations. And what I do is Curtis Careers in a nutshell is a consultant service platform where I provide, career development services and solutions. And I also do consulting, especially around the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion, organizational culture and retention. I also, like I mentioned, with the career development services, I work with companies to do employee coaching. I also do individual coaching for professionals, millennial professionals, where I help them with their career story. I help them with their LinkedIn profile, their resume, their interviewing skills, their elevator pitch. I really craft a plan, if you will, to help them be their best selves and ultimately build a brand that's authentic and true to them, and also build a brand for their career that really brings the results that they want to get. So I'm really excited for what Curtis Careers has been doing recently. I've been able to create new partnerships and new relationships through the business. And folks, if you're interested in my services and my support, you could visit my website curtiscareers.com. My IG handle is at Curtis Careers, and I also have a online course platform called Curtis Careers Student. There's currently one course there available right now. I'm working on a second course. The first course is called Caliber Man, how to build personal and professional integrity. And also, the second course that I'm building right now deals with job interviewing skills. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, that's pretty much what I do. And I'm also an educator. I still work in public education, doing career coaching as well. So yeah, it's all full circle at this point. So really, really excited for what's ahead and currently what's happening right now. So yeah.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. I love when there are things that connect, right? Especially as an employee, and then at the end of the day, you are building your own organization, and when you can find moments of connection. Uh, I find that those are the moments of self care, right?
Yeah.
It's like when
Yeah.
things connect. So
Yep.
let's stay with your company vision, your mission. Tell us what fuels you. Why do you do the work that you do?
Service. First and foremost, the foundation for my business is service. And, I could say, throughout my life, I've been around people who were either colleagues of mine, coworkers, or even mentors who had a heart for service, and really it motivated me to really push this kind of narrative of being an entrepreneur. I've always had this entrepreneurial spirit, but having folks in my life that kind of were an example of what servant leadership is all about. And I think that's not commonplace in business where not a lot of entrepreneurs have that heart of service. It's kind of like, well, let me just, like we say, secure the bag, make money or whatever. But you rarely see folks who run an organization and you could tell that they have like a heart of service, and they're really not just a philanthropic point of view, but just a heart for people and just a compassion to help people succeed. And I think, for me, I always said, and I say this a lot in circles, is, I rather be a blessing than a brand. And I think for me, that's what Curtis Careers is a blessing, not a brand. And I want to be impactful rather than famous. So I think that is the foundation of what Curtis Careers is, because it's the foundation of me as a person, right? So I always try to really, you know, spread that message and, kind of send it home through the content that I create, through the services I provide. It's a very holistic kind of service, right? For some people, they will say like, well, I didn't just speak with Curtis just about my career, but he like got deeper with me and had a conversation with me about my purpose, right? And how does that translate into my career and my business and the things that I want to do, academically, educationally, or whatever, right? So that's been that's been the common thing that I've always tried to push through Curtis Careers, through the services, through the things that I do.
Yeah, it's so important. Service leadership is, I'm finding as I continue to do these sort of interviews, it's really at the core of a lot of people's minds. And I don't know if we talk a lot about, our why and why we wake up every morning. And, you've mentioned so many things here, helping someone come up with a plan, someone to find, especially when you mention some of the young folks that you are working with, to
Mhm,
find that purpose in their life, to build that relationship on a higher level, is really important. And I think as a business owner, it goes a long way, right?
mhm.
When you're there helping someone else and building a true, authentic relationship.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because that's what it's all about, right? It's all about, again, making an impact and helping people, find their purpose, find their own mission, right? And helping them, succeed, right? And not just do it to get something out of it, but do it because you want to give, you're pouring in. So that's so important.
Did you have someone or a number of someones that did this for you, when you think about the service that you're providing to other individuals? Are there people that you can say, oh, that person did that for me, or that person did this for me? Um, can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, totally. So, I can go back to like grade school. When I was, I went to a private school here in Brooklyn, and I can remember teachers like in the sixth grade and seventh grade who had that servant leadership personality, and they had just a heart for people. And you could tell that not only through the way they taught, sorry, but also the relationships that they built with other teachers and their families, and my family, and that always stuck with me. And as I went through my school years, like high school, I was always looking for that through people, like this heart for service, this compassion and care. Because then I started to realize that I was that same person, right? So I can remember like teachers in like sixth grade. I remember my math teacher in high school, and I loved math. I still do, even though I haven't done math in years, right? But my math teacher in high school, my sophomore year, he was a black man. So it was really cool to see someone that looks like me teach math. I never really saw that. You know what I mean? I kind of did through grade school, but to see someone like really, really good at math, and he's a black man, and every time I walked away from that class, not only did I feel support from him, but I also felt, always felt like really smart because he was a really good teacher. So everything he taught me, like, I was doing calculus and trigonometry, and I'm like walking from that class feeling like Doogie Howser, right? Like he was just that good. So I'm just kind of like, yeah, like I really value, our relationship. Like, you know what I mean? Like you really cared about me, but you also was very intentional to make sure that I got the material, right? And I think that's not that's not commonplace nowadays, like good teaching and people being very intentional with that. So um I would say my math teacher, and then college wise, I had a lot of advisors. I sought, therapy through college, which is something that's not really talked about. I feel mental health for college students, and that's a big thing. And I remembered it was my sophomore year, and I was struggling trying to figure out my major, and I changed my major like 3 times. So I started off as like computer science, and then I hated programming, and then I changed it to psychology, and then I didn't really like psychology because my professors, I didn't really like my professors, to be honest. So it kind of discouraged me to even pursue psychology. And then, I just, and at that point, I saw the school psychologist, and she was very supportive, very helpful, very patient with me, and she kind of helped me figure some things out. And then eventually I chose my major, which was business. So I think when you have, I'm just very fortunate to have different stages of my life where people were put there for a reason. And I think if we look at our lives individually, we need to pay attention to who's been put there, who's been brought there for a reason, and what their purpose is. And even though it may be a season, it may not be a lifetime, but there's still value to that, right? So I would say those different periods of my time, as I remember them, um, those have had the greatest impact for me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I would like for you to think about the past 15 months. We've been in the pandemic, thinking about your personal and professional strengths, challenges, learnings. Anything that you can share with us, strengths, challenges, or your learnings.
Uh, I would say a strength, and it's also a challenge, is time management, because I think the pandemic has created an opportunity for folks to really self-assess themselves personally, but also give them time to research on different things. And I think that's been a strength of mine, is just learning how to market my business and scale my business and connect with people, and using the right tools to produce authentic content and consistent content. But also the challenge is, if like me, I have a family, so it's kind of like, managing my son, my wife, and all, you know what I'm saying? So it's like having that personal family life, and having, still the work life, the 9 to 5 life, right? That can be a challenge, right? And there's times where you want to do something, but you're just too tired to do it. And there's other times where you want to do something, but then something else takes precedence over that. So you have to be patient with yourself and give yourself a little grace and say, you know what, don't beat yourself up. Don't beat yourself up if you don't get it done today. There's always a tomorrow. There's always a later. You know what I mean? And sometimes things happen for a reason, right? I'm a s- you know I'm a believer in the sense of, things happen in time, and things happen at the right moment. And you don't want to force things and be in a misalignment, time wise and purpose wise, right? So I would say the time management thing, and then which is both a strength and a challenge. But then I would also say the strength of, again, connecting with people virtually and building new relationships, building new partnerships. That's a strength. If you're very intentional and very focused on that, you could connect with a lot of people, joining like professional organizations and different networks like that, which is what I've done. That's very like crucial to your success, and and being known, and really putting yourself out there to, like create, sales or build relationships, clients, whatever. And another challenge is, I guess, being more consistent, right? And making sure that, I think consistency is the the thing that all of us are striving for. And I think sometimes we get it confused with perfection, and it's like, yeah, we're perfectionists, right? But it's the consistency I feel is at the root of it. And I think if we shift our mindset to having a mindset of let's be more consistent, let me be more consistent, I think that whole perfectionism like falsehood will go away. And I think, again, you're not going to be perfect because again, things happen. You may have something planned out for one day and then some things happen and you have to adjust, right? But the fact of being consistent and having the ability to adjust when changes and situations come, I think that is like critical for your leadership to further develop. So
Yes, I agree with so much that you have said. Sticking with time management, and also self-care.
mm,
What is your self-care routine? How does that show up for you? How do you, being, especially when you're in servant leadership, we show up for people, right? That's what we do. How do you
mhm.
show up for yourself?
Yeah, so I think it's again, it speaks to consistency, right? Is being consistent with you and making time for you, whatever it is that makes you happy, make time for that, right? For me, it's whether it's playing video games or reading a book or working out or eating like a favorite meal, you know, binging on shows, Netflix, Hulu, whatever, doing whatever that speaks to you and fills you up. I think the challenge is that a lot of us we kind of go into this, the word is hustle and grind, and it's like you're working nonstop and you're trying to again make money and do all, and it's like at the expense of your health, at the expense of your well-being. I learned that very quickly. Like I can't do that, right? Because if I'm not, Lauren Hill said it in a song, you can't win if you're not right within, right? And I think that's how she said help me with that one.
Yeah,
We
no, it sounds about right.
right.
I love
You ain't, if you can't win if you're not right within. So it's like, I always reference that phrase, that lyric from Lauren Hill, but it's true. It's like if you don't if you don't make time to um pour into you, then you can't really pour into anybody. You know what I mean? That's just the bottom line. And, again, being intentional, being consistent with that. So for me, it's like making time to say no to an email or say no to this or say no, I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to take this hour and do this, right? And that's kind of how you have to do it. And everyone's schedule is different. But the point is that you say no when you need to say no and you say yes when you need to say yes. I think that's a lot of what happens, or rather what doesn't really happen is that when we say yes to things with that we should have said no to, and vice versa.
yeah,
Right. So I think a lot of us need to like heed those kind of signs where it's like, oh, I should have never said yes to that, or yeah, I should have never said no to that, I should have took time to do that, right? So I
yes,
think the consistency and being intentional with the time is very important.
yeah. And I think with time management, what I heard you say consistently is protecting time to do certain things, right? And I think also giving yourself the permission
Mhm,
to say, you know what, I'm not going to do that today. I can't do it. I can't show up for that thing. Um, and I
mhm,
think the other thing that you also mentioned is like, it's not too late. Tomorrow's another day. You'll have, perhaps
mhm,
another opportunity. And the other thing that I think is important to highlight out of what you said, everything happens for a reason. There is a purpose. And
mhm.
sometimes, I often think about certain delays and things that happen in life. And I believe that there is a higher power that's working
Yeah,
for us. And
yeah,
so delays or even things that like rejection or things that don't come through when we really want it to is sometimes protection. Do you agree with that?
absolutely. And I would say this, I'll say it like this: temporary delays doesn't mean they're permanent denials,
Yeah.
right? So I think when things don't happen the way they should, or the way we would think they should, or the way we would want, rather, we need to like pay attention to the why. And sometimes it's us. Sometimes we're just not ready. Sometimes it's, you know, not the right time. You know what I mean? And we're not fully prepared, whatever it is. And I think it's one of those lessons where we have to kind of sit back and say, okay, well, what should I learn from this, right? Even though this didn't happen right the way I wanted it to, right? What's the takeaway, right? And that's a difficult thing to do, because as human beings, we're so emotionally invested in things that we really care about, right? And when things don't go our way, it could take a toll, because again, we've put so much energy and emphasis on it. When it doesn't happen, we feel let down, we feel like a failure, or we feel sad, or whatever it is, right? But at the same time, we have to develop our emotional maturity, if you will, and say, okay, what am I supposed to learn from this? What am I supposed to gather from this? And that takes time to develop, right? And that takes the level of maturity that, again, we have to develop that, right? So I think for folks, that are watching this and whatnot, like, just remember that, temporary delays doesn't mean permanent denials. You know what I mean? It's just kind of sit back and just kind of assess, what's going on, and then improve and move forward. Or just sometimes it's just you needed to rest. It wasn't anything that needed to be adjusted. It was just like that was a moment for you to just chill and just rest and not do anything. Because if you did push forward, you probably wouldn't have been prepared for what was coming down the pipeline, right? So those things, we have to kind of look at and say, okay, well, this was like for, this was for the betterment of me. You know what I mean? And the situation.
For sure. Post pandemic, what changes do you envision in your company, if any, uh,
Mhm.
post pandemic?
Uh, more more in-person events, more in-person connections. I'm hoping to even acquire spaces, right? And workspaces where people can come in and feel, you know, a sense of belonging, a sense of peace. And what's interesting about that is that's kind of like I would say, and I'm going to think bold here. I wouldn't even say it's a long-term goal. I think it's a short-term goal. I want Curtis Careers to be I want us to, acquire workspaces, right? Just kind of like WeWork and like all these different little hubs that are, and this is like prior to the pandemic, right? You kind of notice like the shift in workspaces and people going into different rooms and just overall spaces to work and connect. And it's like I kind of want to be a part of that kind of circle where it's like, oh, Curtis Careers is well known for this outstanding service, but it's also known for these very inclusive and very peaceful spaces where people can get work done and people can relax and people can, that's something that I'm looking to look into very soon. Is, yeah, let's create spaces where people can, really get things done and really feel, this I guess this spirit of peace, right? And I think post pandemic is that's something we need, because I think, us coming back out into the public, I think a lot of us are gonna run to all these different things, right, to unwind and party and you know what I mean? And then now is gonna be, okay, I need to I need to rest. I need to find a space to kind of just slow down. And I want to be, the ideal is I want to have a space where people can do that. You know what I mean? And not just be in their house to do that, but it's like, oh, I can go here and do it, right? And or I can come here and connect with someone and have a really really nice business meeting or a quick chat or whatever, right? So there's that, and there's also hopefully the opportunity to travel and support, you know, colleges and workspaces and present the work that I do through Curtis Careers in those environments, and really again kind of spread this kind of spirit of service and the spirit of support and not just do it virtually, right? Because it's one thing to do things virtually, but then it's another thing where you actually see the person and you're entrenched with the people around that space, and you feel their energy, they feel your energy, and there's a lot of fruit that can come from that. So
Yeah, definitely. Question about your courses. I know that they are virtual online right now. Do
mhm.
you ever envision coming in person to teach your course with small groups of people? Like, is there any shift in your mind for your courses?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely a possibility. And I think again, having the opportunities to present those courses and do it. And I'm a small group kind of kind of teacher instructor, if you will. I mean, it's not to say I can't do large groups, but I find that the small groups for me is very special because one, it's not just your voice. You allow other voices to kind of permeate the space, and now it's like this, everyone's spirit is kind of involved in the experience, right? Because sometimes when you speak in large group settings, it's like you and the large group, and it's like them just kind of feeding off of what you're giving. And again, there's a space for that, but I'm also looking forward to those small group discussions, small group courses and sessions where it's like I'm kind of sitting with them and I'm talking with them, and I'm like, we're picking each other's brain, and it's like I'm learning, they're learning.
Yes, yes,
You know
yes.
what I mean? So I think, from my experience, I think people value those kind of experiences more because they could take so much out of it. Um, and it's somewhat therapeutic for people, and for yourself as well, if that's your thing.
Mhm.
Um, in terms of that's your business and whatnot. I think you even walk away like, oh man, I'm glad you walk away refreshed as well, right?
Sure,
You know,
sure.
because you've kind of created an environment that's very organic and very supportive and welcoming, and there's multiple voices involved. So I'm looking forward to that as well, and
Yeah.
that's something that I'm currently offering right now. So if companies are interested in those kind of settings where we're sitting down and discussing certain things, I'm definitely open to doing that now, because again, it's not just virtual. So
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes, yes. This is great. This is really great. Um, how do you show gratitude to your clients?
So for me, it's the follow up. It is consistently following up with that person, and is not saying, because some salespeople, entrepreneurs would they'll what I've seen from my experience is they'll work with you, you pay them, and then once that's done, then they'll say, well, hey, if you want to continue more, here's this, and you got to pay for this, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to be that kind of person. I want to serve that person, and definitely the compensation, all that is there, but even afterwards it's like I'm going to come back to you and say, hey, well, you should do this as well, and you should do this, and you should think about this, and let me give you this, and this is at no charge, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
it's like I'm giving you much more than what you paid for,
Mm,
right? Um and i think when you approach things like that, what you do is, one, you're really helping the person and making them feel like it's not just about the money, and two, what you're doing is you're kind of creating somewhat of publicity for yourself, because now that person's going to tell their people and say, hey, like, you should work with Curtis, or you should work with Danielle because they did this and this for me, and you know and they came back and they gave me more stuff, and they followed up with me like even more than the first time, and now
mhm.
you're creating this energy, if you will,
Yes,
that's going to bring more people your way to serve. And I think that's the key to successful businesses, and more so, again, it's the key to really helping people succeed and give them what they need.
yes,
So
yes. Great. Three words that you would say are part of your core values, or three words that you can define as your core values.
ooh, that's a good question. Service is one. um compassion,
Mhm.
and drive.
Yes, yes.
Drive. Service, compassion, and drive. Um, and the thing with driving, which is interesting, is, and I'm looking at using a car analogy. You're not always going at the same speed limit, but you're still moving.
Mhm.
So there's some days where you're going 60 and it's like you're cruising. Then there's some days where it's like, all right, I'm just doing 20. And there's some days you're doing 5, right? But the point is you don't stop. The point is you keep going, you're in motion. You know what I mean? And that's just with not necessarily like your tasks. And again, I'm not saying like, well, do a 24-hour work schedule. No, it's what I'm saying is your passion, your desire, that should always be in motion. That should never be like there should never be a stalemate. That should never like stop moving. You know what I mean? Even if you've taken a day of rest, you're still driving because that's part of your purpose, right? You're taking a day to rest. You're taking a day to recharge you. So just because you're not doing the things that you think you should do for your business or for your job, your purpose is still in motion. When your purpose is not in motion is when you're not really thinking of anything, you're not really planning on doing anything, you're just kind of in this personal and professional limbo, if you will. So my encouragement for folks is like, always keep your purpose and drive. And sometimes if you need to reverse and kind of reverse back a little bit and say, okay, let me reverse and observe some things and then move forward. But that's the thing. It's like you only reverse temporarily to reassess and adjust, right? But normally we drive forward. We don't drive in reverse. We use it again to adjust and assess, but we don't always stay there. We always put the car in drive and we always move forward. So I say the same is true with our purpose and what we're called to do is like, let your purpose be always in drive. And if you need to stop, if you need to reverse, fine, but always keep your purpose on drive. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, I think that's really great. I've never heard someone describe it that way. And something that's resonating with me is checking back on your purpose, right? When you especially with time management and things like that, when you might, as you mentioned, say no to certain things, not only because maybe you can't do it for your mental and physical health that day, but
Mhm.
the other part is it's not everything is for you, right? And so checking
Right.
back in on those core values, and your mission, your company mission, is really important as a leader. But service and compassion, I think those, I mean, definitely compassion, right? When you're working with other people, when you're working with other human beings, having compassion goes a really long way.
Yeah.
Understanding their path, where they want to go, maybe where they've been.
Yep.
Compassion is key for sure. For sure.
hmm Yeah, because like I mentioned earlier, there's not too many folks who have that. You kind of tell by what they do, right? The content they create, the way they approach life, the way they address certain things or the way they don't address certain things, right? And we could tell, like, all you have to do is just sit back and observe. That's the thing with life and learning is like sometimes you don't have to say anything. You
Yes.
don't have to do anything. You just have to sit back and observe,
Yes.
which is something I recommend everyone do. Is like sit back and observe your environment, observe how people talk, observe how people respond, how they react, and you would kind of see like, okay, you could kind of and I think that's a very great exercise to build discernment, right? Because when you sit back and observe people and you see how they move and you see what they say, you know, you're able to really assess the situation in
Yeah.
impactful way because now you'll say, oh, okay, well, this is how they move and this is what they stand for and I think again that helps build our discernment to make better decisions, right? And I think that's important with relationship building, right? I
Mhm.
always try to, respond versus react. I try to observe and listen and feel the room and feel the environment. And then based off of what I've been given, then now I could respond to the situation versus react. Um, And I think that's critical for, again, communication, you know what I mean? And, and I think if we kind of walked in that vein even more, I think, again, we can see the results that we want to see.
Yeah, excellent. I think there's so many gems that you have shared, and I just want to take a moment to really thank you for your time. I know as we talk about time management, time
Yeah.
is valuable, and I appreciate you protecting this time to be here with me
Thank you.
and with our audience. And so, one more time, Curtis, where can people find you?
Yeah, so again, thank you, Danielle, for doing this. I appreciate you. Yeah, so you could find me on, first of all, you could find me on LinkedIn. Just type in Curtis Cox. I'm on LinkedIn. My company, Curtis Careers, is on LinkedIn as well. You could follow me there. My company page and my personal page on LinkedIn. Folks, you can reach out to me, at Curtis Careers on Instagram. My website is curtiscareers.com, where you'll have all my information there. You can contact me through the website or through Instagram. You can DM me, feel free. And yeah, I'm here to serve and support you as best as I can. So looking forward to connecting with you guys, whoever is interested.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Curtis. Stay with me for one moment.
Sure.
Thank you all. My name again is Danielle Kilcullen, and here with Curtis Cox, learning more about professional development. And so
Mm.
I can be reached at on my website, exploringthewonderyears.com. And again, thank you all for being with us today.
Thank you. Take care, guys.